What's going on, everybody? Jeremiah here from Babble in My Backyard, a pond and garden channel packed full of informative and how-to videos for you. Today we are going to be installing a fan in a greenhouse. The particular fan we're using is in the link below, as well as everything else that we're going to be installing, because we're installing a vent in the greenhouse as well. This is a pretty generic fan. It's a really inexpensive fan, and I can tell you it's been running great. It's very quiet. If this video is helping you out, make sure to subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. It's much appreciated to get that support. Thank you. Let's jump into the video. Alright, so this is the fan we got here. I got this fan off of Amazon. The link is in the description below. The particular model that I got has the extra control for the speed and also came with the plug-in cord. You do not have to buy this model. You can just buy the fan only for a little less money, and then you can hardwire it straight into some sort of temperature gauge. I also am using a separate temperature gauge, so we'll be showing how to get that set up as well. This fan design came with these studs. They're okay. I would have rather seen them use lag bolts, but these anchors will work for us. We just have to show how they work. But the 2x frame is really important here because it needs to be really sturdy when it goes in here. First thing I gotta do is I gotta cut this pattern out of the wall. So up in this corner, I've already marked out my dimensions and I drilled a hole, but I'm going to go to the other side where it's going to be easier to work. I will mark it out correctly and square on the other side, and then I'll saw the opening out. So on this side, from the hole that I've drilled, I'm going to make sure that I get the measurements and square edges correct. I want this to be square. If it's out of square at all, then the fan won't fit in there properly, or there'll be gaps on one side or the other side. So I'm going to use a square and a level to make sure that I'm square and level, and then I'm going to measure my 12 inches high and 12.5 inches wide while I'm marking this out. It's important to make sure that you gave yourself a little bit extra and not just try to go straight to the dimensions of the fan. So in my case, I gave myself an 1/8 inch on any side. So it's a total of 12.25 inches by 12.75 inches. Next, I'm going to drill a hole on the opposite corner of this mark out that I've created. And then I will use a saw to saw out the square. Now I'm going to measure out my lengths of my stud pieces that are going to be framing this hole. I need the 2x to measure from this top board up here to the top of the window down here, and I need that to happen on both sides. And then I also need the widths to be correct to frame this in. So I'll go get those cut up. The first thing I'm going to do is install my top support to the siding. Next, I'm going to attach the longer side to that board, and then the shorter side to that board. And now I'll put the last piece into the frame. Now from the opposite side, I'll make sure everything's nice and square, and I will get it all attached to the siding. Next, I need to put my fan up there, make sure that it's actually fitting into the opening, and then if it is, which it is, I'm going to mark out my holes to drill for my anchors. Next, we're going to add our plug. So I need to remove this cover, which is the wiring housing cover, and I'm going to pull out my wires. I've got a green ground wire, and then I've got my power white and black wires. The same colored wires are coming from my plug, so it makes this very easy. Now I do have to knock out this tab here, and once I've knocked that out, then that's going to be where my cord is coming through. Whichever side you need your cord coming off of, that's the side you want to knock the tab off of. So with this comes a wire pull. This is how we attach it to the fan without the wire just pulling out and then the wire nuts separating. So you slide that over the top of your cord, and you're going to want to lock that thing down. Then it comes with a nut that when you put it through your hole in your power box, the threads will go through there, and then you'll use the nut to lock it down into place. It's a little tricky because it's very small inside this location, so it's hard to hold the nut and to thread it on. The smaller your fingers you have, the better for this. Now we're going to connect the wires. So you got your wire nuts, and you can first connect your green wire. That's the easy one, that's ground. You want to make sure that the wires are not frayed, so you'll twist each one individually and then make sure that they're equal in length when you put the nut on. Give them just a slight pull to make sure that they're tight in there, and then continue to do this with your other cords. Once you've got everything wire nutted on, then you're going to have to push all the wires down inside the box and then put the cap back on. I would recommend using a hand screwdriver to put the cap back on. The sheet metal is easy to strip out. I have the drill down to a very low clutch, so it will give way before it strips the threads out. So next thing I gotta do is drill out the holes that I've marked previously for the fan anchors. On the largest point of the anchor, you'll need to find a drill that is one size larger than that. That's what I have done here. I've just picked a drill one size larger. Now you can go up and drill your holes. Make sure you don't go too far that you break through the other side. These are only a couple inches long, so 2 1/4 inches is probably fine. Now you can get your fan in place and start putting your washers and nuts onto the studs that are sticking out so that you can anchor those in place. Once you get them all started and tightened by hand, you will need to use a ratchet or a box end wrench or something to tighten those down tighter. How these anchors work are kind of like drywall anchors. Basically, as you tighten these up, they wedge out, so they're going to hold in place by just really wedging open and driving themselves into the walls of the 2x. Alright, so we're going to talk now about how we're going to install this. I got a vent for exterior that has a screen on it so bugs can't get in. So it's going to go on this edge down here. First thing I'm going to do is mark where I'm coming through in this open. I will drill a hole to mark it between the studs. That's basically what I need to figure out, is where am I landing in between these studs so I don't run into a stud when I try to saw the hole out for this. So next thing I'm going to do is mark out around here from this corner. Now I'm ready, I can saw this thing out here. Next thing I gotta do is screw that thing on. As I said before, I got this different control for the temperature. You can get the model that has a temperature gauge with it, but I liked this digital version a little better, so I picked this up. This is also in the description below. Everything that you need for this build is in the description below. One of the other benefits with this is that my probe that's actually taking the temperature is on a long cord, so I can run that down lower in the greenhouse. It's always much hotter up higher in the greenhouse, but I want it to kick off at a lower level where the plants are at. This fan pulls the the hot air from the high spot in the greenhouse. That is why that I've put this fan up high in the greenhouse, is because I wanted to pull the hot air from up there. And it's going to be venting from lower on the other side of the greenhouse, on the shaded side of the greenhouse, so the cooler air over there should be pulling into the greenhouse, pulling up through the top, and then pulling it out the opposite side of the greenhouse. Okay, I couldn't really show it very easily. The lighting is horrible and the camera couldn't pick up the display of the temperature gauge. So it said at the moment it's 86 degrees in here. It's early in the morning still. 86 degrees, and I have set it to go off at 75 degrees. So at 75 degrees it kicks on. So it should come on right away then. So I'm going to go ahead and get it all plugged in and turned on. So I'll obviously come back in. I've got more green paint. I'll come back in and seal all this up with paint. I'll also trim it with white trim. It'll look nice once I get it all trimmed up and painted again. Alright, thank you. Hopefully this helped you out. If it did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our wonderful videos. We've got some other greenhouse videos coming to help cool the greenhouse, and so we've been doing some experimenting to figure out what works best. So don't miss that. Subscribe to the channel. Until that video though, check out one of these other great videos. I've got several. We'll see you in one of those other videos.